Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you. That's depending where you are in the world. I'm here live in London doing our WhatsApp, not WhatsApp, doing our nighttime devotion. The devotional is called Conflict and Courage. The title today, Build, Repair, Restore. Um, the scripture reading comes from Isaiah 58:12. They that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places. Thou shalt raise up the foundations of many generations, and thou shalt be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of paths to dwell in. In the work of reform to be carried forward today, there is need of men who, like Ezra and Nehemiah, will not palliate or excuse sin, nor shrink from vindicating the honor of God. Those upon whom rests the burden of this work will not hold their peace when wrong is done, neither will they cover evil with a cloak of false charity. They will remember that God is no respecter of persons, and that severity to a few may prove mercy to many. They will remember also that in the one who rebukes evil, the Spirit of Christ should ever be revealed. In their work, Ezra and Nehemiah humbled themselves before God, confessing their sins and the sins of their people, and entreating pardon as if they themselves were the offenders. Nehemiah was not a priest. He was not a prophet. He made no pretension to high title. He was a reformer, raised up for an important time. It was his aim to set his people right with God. Inspired with a great purpose, he bent energy of his being to its accomplishment. As he came into contact with every evil and opposition to right, sorry, as he came into contact with evil and opposition to right, he took so determined to stand that the people were roused to labor with fresh zeal and courage. The work of restoration and reform carried on by the returned exiles under the leadership of Zerubbabel, Ezra, Nehemiah presents a picture of a work of spiritual restoration that is to be wrought in the closing days of this earth's history. God's remnant people, standing before the world as reformers, are to show that the law of God is the foundation of all enduring reform, and that the Sabbath of the fourth commandment is to stand as a memorial of creation, a constant reminder of the power of God. In clear, distinct lines, they are to present the necessity of obedience to all the precepts of the Decalogue. Constrained by the love of Christ, they are to cooperate with Him in building up the waste places. They are to be repairers of the breach, restorers of paths to dwell in. So the title, Build, Repair, Restore. And again, it's based around Ezra and Nehemiah, who were more known for the restoration and the rebuilding of the Second Temple. Build, repair, restore. Nehemiah is known to have organized the repairing and somewhat restoration of the Second Temple when he was in Media Persia at that time. He was a cupbearer for Artaxerxes, if I remember correctly. And it was put in his heart by God to go and repair the walls of Jerusalem. And he was allowed to do that. He was given resources to do that by the king, which is a blessing because Medo Persians, they weren't of God. But God put it into Artaxerxes' heart to let Nehemiah go and restore, rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Ezra, the priest, the student, the scholar who studied Zerubbabel, the prophet. Zerubbabel was the one that, if I remember correctly, was inspired to rebuild the Second Temple. And then Nehemiah obviously went to restore. Now, the Second Temple, the first temple, was destroyed by Babylon. Zerubbabel was inspired to build the Second Temple. Ezra was the priest at the time, urging people to come back to Jerusalem. Nehemiah was the cupbearer of the king, who then was inspired by God to go back and restore, repair the walls around Jerusalem and, of course, the temple. And it says here, God's remnant people standing before the world as reformers are to show that the law of God is the foundation of all enduring reform, and that the Sabbath of the fourth commandment is to stand as a memorial of creation, a constant reminder of the power of God. Why is it a reminder of the power of God? Because God created by his word. God said, let there be light. There was light. And then God said, let there be land, and there was land. God said, and it was. The fourth commandment is the only commandment that says, remember. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The Sabbath day was the seventh day, which is 6 days was creation done. The seventh day God rested. Now that's not rested as in, oh, I'm tired. It was he rested means he stopped and he beheld what he had done. And he sanctified that the seventh day. Now, there is talk from various people in the world that, well, I can worship any day of the week. Any day is my Sabbath. No. Is your birthday any day of the week? Or is your birthday one particular day in that year? So it can't be your birthday every day, can it? God chose the seventh day, which is 1 day per week. That seventh day is sanctified and made holy. Our purpose is to remember God, particularly on this day, as he remembered us in creation. He created us, then he sat back and admired us. So we should at least that 1 day in the week admire him for all he has done and is doing for us in our lives constantly, every moment of our existence. Now, if you're unsure about the Sabbath and the seventh day, there's one simple place to look in the Bible in the New Testament. If you go to Luke 23, and I believe it's from verse 53 through to the first few verses in Luke 24, when the women ran to the tomb, what you have to remember is we all know that the Christ was crucified on Good Friday. Today is a Friday for us, okay? So on that day, which is known as Preparation Day is the day before Sabbath, preparing for Sabbath. So biblically, it's called Preparation Day. As far as we're concerned, it's called Friday. It says the Christ was crucified on the day of preparation. The Sabbath draweth on. The Sabbath was the next day where everyone rested. And then it said, on the morning of the first day of the week, the women ran to the tomb was empty, and he had risen. The morning of the first day of the week. We all know that to be Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday, the first day of the week. Sunday is the first day, okay? Not the seventh day. So remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Now, I'm not going to harp on about the Sabbath and the Ten Commandments because you should know these already. I'm going to harp on about the importance of them. I break them myself. I don't keep them all. I don't even keep the Sabbath properly. But I do know about the Sabbath and I do try and keep it. But then there's thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. The first 4 commandments are about God. The 4th commandment, obviously being the Sabbath. And then the further 6 are all about what you shouldn't do. You should have no graven images, no statues. What's the Catholic Church full of? Statues, graven images, etc., etc., etc. You've got all these statues of Saint Thomas and Saint James and Saint Mary and Saint this and Saint that. And people worship them and people have medals of them and everything. Why? Because the Catholic Church says to do it. So you're worshipping idols. You're looking at these things and this is called idol worship. You're putting that before God. When you pray the Hail Mary, you're putting Mary before God. Mary's dead. She's in the grave. She's gone, awaiting to be risen, if she hasn't risen already in the special resurrection. But beside the point, God is our creator. God is the one we should always be praying to and praying through his son Jesus. And that's the way it should always be when you pray. Constrained by the love of the Christ, we are to cooperate with him in building up the waste places. We are to be repairers of the breach, restorers of paths to dwell in. We are repairers of the breach. We are the watchmen, you could say. And we are to watch, we are to pray, and we are to preach where we can, or at least let people know. Give them the truth, gospel, the good news. Jesus is coming back. Jesus will save us. But you need to want to be saved. And in doing so, you need to abide in what he's given us to abide in, the 10 Commandments and the testimony of Jesus. God bless you.